What's up, Capstone family? This is Ed Drummond coming at you on this Friday, the 3rd of September. We are already into the last 4 months of the year. How amazing this year has been so far. Things seem, and from our standpoint, things seem and feel to be slowing down. But then I brought in that whole feel conversation, and I shouldn't do that because if I look at the numbers, then that tells a kind of another picture, another story. Right now, what we're seeing on the resale side is they are somewhat slipping just a little bit, but there's still an insane market. Just like we talked about last week, we're still seeing institutional buyers coming in here and offering significantly more than often we can get on the open market. So what that means to you, like with most of our sales right now, we have 2 under contract that are with an institutional buyer that is willing to pay more than fair market value by a good percentage, right? And in this particular case, and now we've developed relationships with a lot of these institutional buyers, and we can get them to come to the table and somewhat compete for your business, saving you maybe a little bit of money on the commission side, but also repairs and that type of stuff. Like, then we don't have to get into it, right? Our average sale, of a house that's say under $400,000, we're getting at least a couple $1,000s worth of repairs that need to be done after the buyer asks for their inspection report and all of that is done. They're getting at least a couple $1,000s worth of repairs. So that cuts all of that out, plus a little bit of commission, plus a little bit of like all kinds of stuff. So it's just a win for you. We're seeing that, but what we are seeing, and I was just talking to Evan about this, who I'll bring in just a second. She's just out of frame here, and I'm going to go through most of this. She feels that she's going to mess this up if one take, if I go through all this stuff and then she comes in, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of pressure. So let's see what happens. I think she's going to do an amazing job because she will. And yeah, right here. Boom. All right. So one thing I wanted to bring in, you can come on in now. I've already kind of introduced her. Hey, you all know Evan. Okay, cool. Hey, so we're talking about Evan's going to help us out with renewals. I wanted to get her perspective on what she's seeing with renewals because she's getting a lot of questions. And arguably, even right now for me personally on portfolio that I have, she came and said, hey, Ed, what's up with these properties? They've been sitting at the same rents forever. And she and I are going through our Sold on Phoenix list of what's happening with the rents. And just before I let Evan jump into that, I wanted to give you a quick breakdown on what the numbers have looked like from a rental standpoint, and you'll see what we mean and how nuts it is. Now, if you want to see this information firsthand, go to our website, thesoldonphoenix.com. There's also a link in the email that you got that shows MLS market data. Go down to the one, it's third down, monthly average lease price per square foot. Listen to these numbers. In 2010, the average rent here in town was 67 cents a square foot. Keep in mind, this is for all MLS market data. This is for the entire market, right? Now what we're seeing from the MLS is we're seeing in December of 2020, it went up to $1. So from 67 cents in 2010 to $1 per square foot in 2020. That was December of 2020. As of this last month, August 2021, we are seeing $1.37 a square foot in rents. That's why the conversation that Evan is having with a lot of you is so important right now, because it's jumped up so much, even in the last year, that we've got to be keeping up with rents. As hard as it might be, it was for me, hey, they've been great tenants for a long, long time, but the deal, to me, it doesn't help people to leave them in at rents that are just stupid low, right? So without further ado, Evan, how do you feel about that?
So I totally agree. I think one of the questions I get asked a lot from our owners is, how do I approach the tenants with this?
Yeah.
And you just show them the numbers. I mean, I'm going to have to market this property if the tenant doesn't stay. So when I'm renewing with a tenant, it's really, really important for you to be within range of market value. Within range of market value is like $100.
$100, okay.
We want them to see the value of staying in the unit. Of course, you want to keep the tenant. And when I present these crazy increases that you might be saying, $300, $400 in this last year, I'm saying, well, we're going to be a little bit less. And
you're saying like $300, $400 on like a $1,500 a month rental?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Even from last year. And some owners are like, well, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? And it's, a lot of people are not going to be prepared for that. So we
Right.
have that conversation with the owner of where they need to be and what makes sense if we have to do a vacancy, and how guarantee are we to get these numbers. But what we really want to show the tenant is that, yes, this is what the market is doing.
Right.
And you've been a great tenant. You've been paying your rent on time. So we're going to be within range of market. You're never, ever going to be at market because, again, we want to see the value staying in our unit. The house on market is going to have probably fresh paint, brand new carpet.
You're totally right.
And tenants will move for $1,200 in a year. An owner doesn't want to lose a tenant for $1,200 a year.
Totally.
So we'll look at all of that with you. We'll also discuss it with your tenant. We want to make everybody to make smart decisions,
right.
But we also don't want to have our owners be leaving too much money on the table.
That's totally true.
So sometimes it might be time to cut everyone loose because you're just going to continue to fall behind if this tenant can't keep up, and we need to set everybody up for success.
I totally agree with that, and I think that's one thing that the team does really, really good, really, really well. And you all know Evan and her communication, and basically she does such an amazing job talking to tenants and making sure that they really understand what their options are, right? And as well as yours, but really bringing it together to educate everybody so that everyone sees, like, hey, we'll send this information to a tenant. They should see it too, right? Like, they need to know what's really happening out there because, when we do that walk, and oftentimes I'll walk the property not knowing what your decision is going to be, whether you're going to sell it or whether you're going to re-rent it, right? And I'll walk through there and the tenant might be asking me some questions, and I'll always ask them, or whoever's walking it is always like, hey, do you like it here? If you were given the option to stay versus move out, what would you choose? And hey, have you thought about buying it? Because usually if I'm out there walking it, it means we're getting pricing to figure out what the price would actually be, right? So then it gives them a good idea. It gives us a good idea of what their situation would be. But really quickly to your point, okay, how much money are you leaving on the table? When it comes down to, leaving maybe $100 a month on the table, the amount of cost of turning that property, your average cost is going to be, what do you think, like $6,000?
Yeah, depending on your price point. I mean, the higher rents, obviously, you're going to be leaving a lot more on the table if you have a 1 month of vacancy, plus leasing, plus turnover costs, versus your, average rents at like $1,500. Those numbers start to shrink down. But I think around, could average out about $3,000 to $4,000.
Okay, $3,000. I always budget like $6,000, $7,000, like that. That's pretty conservative, thinking, hey, that stuff might come up that I don't know. But even then, like, think about that. At $400 a month, you got an extra, what is that? $4,800, $5,000 a year, right? That, in essence, that $5,000 a year could be the turn. So you're essentially making that money back in only 1 year. That's the first time we've ever seen that. It's usually like years that we're talking through this, right? Like, hey, well, if you had to turn it right now, your break even may be like, 3.5 years or something like that.
It may take you a year and a half to recover this, or 2 years to recover, but now we're seeing this in months. And it's crazy. And some owners are feeling the pressure, and they're like, oh, should I take the jump? Should I take the leap? Yes, you might have to. And the tenant should also make decisions, because we're just going to keep falling behind, further and further and further behind.
Yes.
So it is actually more of a group thing. Like, this is what's best for everyone. This is what it's looking like. And
this market is changing rapidly. I mean, on the rental side, we're seeing prices still go up on the sales side. We still are. I mean, it seems to be leveling off at least a little bit. But on the rental side, like, it doesn't look like it's slowing down. So we've got to do our best to stay ahead of this, especially for your properties as well, because at the end of the day, like, as much as I would say that we're in this to flip and help people out as much as we can, at the end of the day, you're an investor and your property is there to help support you and your future self, right? So it's like, if we're not getting you the most out of it that we can within reason, right? And it's not doing, or we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And on one more note, what Ed kind of touched on is that, rents normally go in a seasonal pattern. There is a definite pattern to it. And this last year, we didn't see any slowing down in December. It just kept going up and up and up. And, hopefully that continues. And from what I can see from this graph, it may. Yeah. So.
And check out the graph. So what Evan's alluding to, again, is that monthly average lease price per square foot graph that we have on the site for you to use. That we pay for this stuff, so please use it. It's so helpful, and it's right from the source. So, I mean, and you'll see the dips every single year. It goes up and down until this year. It's just continuing to go up. We did not see that downturn. Evan, thanks for jumping on with me. I totally appreciate you.
I do. Comment below.
Yeah. She came in today and she just had another couple of these conversations, and I was like, oh my gosh, that would totally play into what we need to talk about today. So thanks so much for doing that. I appreciate you. Cool. Thanks for watching, y'all. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you have any suggestions for what you want to see in this market right now, please let me know. I appreciate you.